Like,
dude, I'm glad. I'm
no, but he's in on everything.
Sheldon Keefe, man, because people always stop me and they're like, Willie Styles is so good. And I'm like, you know what? He is. He's going to score 40 goals this year.
Yeah.
But I continue to tell people he's not even close. I think he's a top 10 player in the league if he puts it all together, and he brings it every shift. Like, he could be the best player on the ice most nights, but it happened to me in my career. You fall asleep a little bit, you get content, you look at your stats. It's like, I don't have to put the pedal down because I'm going to get my 40. And you need a coach to be in your face and say, it's got to be more consistent. And it starts with work, and then once it's like a cycle every time. You got to get back to work and going to the net and shooting the puck from the dangerous areas, and then you start scoring again, and then you fall in the trap of being comfortable again. The idea is just to not fall in the trap as many times as he's done.
Right, and like the messaging is directed towards him and Tavares. Tavares doesn't have a shot in the last 2 games, only got 2 shots on goal in the last 4 games. That's why Marner's with him. Like Marner's a Jiffy app. When you need something done, you get Mitch Marner. Joining us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's our TSN
ever said on the show.
Hockey analyst, Mike Johnson. What's happening, Johnny?
I'm laughing at the Jiffy app. I'm like, is Hayes getting a free lawn cleaning right now? Like,
you would think.
Listen, he is the Jiffy app. He is the Jiffy app. When there's a small job or an emergency, it's Mitch Marner that you go to get the job done.
I agree with that.
Okay, so then you agree with that.
The Jiffy app for defenseman?
You know who I think is the Jiffy app of defensemen? TJ Brody.
100%.
There you go.
I think TJ Brody is the Jiffy app.
Can I ask Mike something just because we're on this topic?
Sure.
Mike,
the Jiffy app or players?
No, well, it's related.
Okay.
Do you think another Jiffy app candidate, Ryan O'Reilly, do you think he needs to play with Tavares when he comes back, like playoff time?
Then he's not a Jiffy app guy, is he? You know what I mean? Like, you don't get Jiffy status if you need Tavares. Like, you gotta take whoever, Kerfoot and Lafferty, and make that a checking line. Because I think Sheldon Keefe is setting up his roster right now to go 1, 2, 3 centermen. I don't think he's planning on playing those guys together the whole time or to start. Now, he may go there and he'll mix and match depending on what's going on for sure. But I think ideally he'd play them 1, 2, 3, and he could have O'Reilly, and he will be able to push a line at least defensively to make them reliable, even if the offense isn't quite there. So, I don't know if he's at that point where he can drive an offensive line by himself, and if he's not, then maybe he gets Tavares. But I think Keefe would prefer, ideally, that they go 1, 2, 3 down the middle to start.
Well, and if that's the case, and I think you're probably right, there's 2 star wingers. So you got Willie and you've got Marner, which means one centerman is not going to have access to those guys.
Right.
Is it just obvious that it's the third centerman, or maybe is it the first? I mean, that seems to be applying here to Matthews the last couple of games, including tonight. This discussion revolving around him. Can he pull a Crosby here and drag up 2 wingers with him and let everyone else filter out appropriately? Do you see that being a possibility here?
It's a possibility, but I mean, even for Austin Matthews, that's a tall task. I mean, if you're going to turn Yarncroke and Kerfoot into a first line, Matthews is great, and if anyone could, it would be him as a centerman on that team. I just wonder if there's just limitations to how much those other guys could score. Just because there's limitations on how much they score. Like, that's just the nature of their game. But if you could somehow, and that was good enough to be an effective line and to score and to drive play, which is what they needed to do, then you could sprinkle in a Marner with Tavares and a Nylander with O'Reilly, and then the roster looks entirely different, so much more dangerous. And maybe, I think, again, part of what he's experimenting with now is these sort of solutions, these sort of options. Now, he won't know how it plays out until he gets O'Reilly back, but until O'Reilly gets back, he's sort of experimenting as he goes along to see what could be viable to try when O'Reilly does get back. But I still think it's probably, Marner goes with Tavares and Nylander goes with Matthews or vice versa. Bunting goes with one of them, and then whether it's Yarncroke or whether it's probably Yarncroke, maybe it's around the top 6, maybe it's Kerfoot, and then O'Reilly gets the other guys. And then the fourth line that you've already spotted of Kemp and Achari and Aston Reese, like that's the fourth line, and other wingers just sort of fill in accordingly. And Matthew Nyes, I think, is going to have a chance to play in one of those spots too. whenever he gets here in a week or two, he might get a couple weeks to audition for one of those spots as well.